This thing's driving me nuts. Every time I started, it says it's not there, or this can't do and that can't do.
Well, you know, I think the internet's kind of crappy here in town.
Yeah.
Mine's still running slow. I don't know.
Well, mine will cut
I
out
got
going
breaks.
through town. I'll be driving through town with my phone and the service will disappear.
Yeah.
Do you have right speed? Is that
It is sometimes.
At the lake, I've got Spectrum, that dies and goes out. Weeks, hours at a time. And it's like $100 a month. And I can get phone coverage.
Yeah.
I can do that for $50.
I try to stream across races and they're just, either freezes.
Yeah, that's the same thing. You like it? Even matching with shorts.
Hey, I did what you gotta do.
I'm good. Okay, welcome to First Universalist of New Madison. A balmy, kind of sticky day, but not bad. Didn't work.
I've got one.
Hope you had a good week last week. I was in Iowa for a family wedding. It was enjoyable. Torrential rains on the way up, driving 30 miles an hour with semis all over. Torrential rains on the way back on I-80. So the global warming is definitely having an effect. And I mean, it was like raining for 30, 40 minutes. You couldn't see. It was raining so hard. And it really was slowed down to 30 miles an hour. So luckily, no accidents. So hopefully you got along all right with April. So good. All right, any announcements?
Well, the announcement I've already put out again, but a reminder, there will be no service here next week. We will all be in El Dorado. They have an air-conditioned church, by the way. They're receiving an honor or recognition. I'm thinking it's Fresno County Historic Society, and they invited us to share that. So we will not have a service here next week. And the other announcement I have is I heard from Dolly. Dolly is doing great. She's still on the ship and having the time of her life.
Great.
And now they moved from Hawaii up the coast of California, and then now we're in Alaska, and she was going on in her last message about the beauty of glaciers, their color, along with jumping whales and wonderful things that one sees off the coast of Alaska. So we wish Dolly well.
Yes.
I believe she'll be coming back in a couple months, so that's the updates.
Amazing to spend your months at a time on a ship traveling from one place to another. It must be an amazing experience. So next week, no service here. It'll be at El Dorado, air conditioned. They'll provide a meal afterwards. It's a recognition.
Probably snacks or something.
Yeah, not a meal, but they didn't say anything about carry-in, so there's no sense in taking anything with us. We'll just see what they have. Their service is at 10:30, not 10 o'clock. I'm sure they wouldn't mind if you got there early. And they are getting recognition in the Historic Register of Places or something like that, so we'll find out. So, no service here next week, then back again the week after. We're having our annual meeting after the service today. Everybody's welcome to stay. We've got some light refreshments, just as usual, donuts and cookies and peanuts and things like that. Anything else? Can't think of anything. All right, prelude. Almost like being in love. like being in love. Hey. You missed the announcements. No service here next week. We'll be at El Dorado. They're having a joint service for recognition, and their air conditioning meet at 10:30 over there. Good. All right. You see from the title is why. I was all over the place this week trying to figure out what to do, and once again, it's topical, brought about by what's on the news and what's happening in our country and our civilization. And the question is, why are we where we are? How do we get to this place, and how do we get out of it? We're going to start out with a little anatomical exploration, talk about the amygdala. And I have a pet theory, which I don't know if it's all mine, but science has told us that when the human brain gets too warm, it has trouble processing thoughts. So when it gets too hot, your thought process is kind of diminished. And I started to extrapolate with that and thought, let's look at a map of the United States. Actually, let's look at a map of the world and see where the thought process works seemingly pretty well and where it doesn't seem to work too well. So if you think about the conservative red states in the United States, where are they? And what's the temperature down there? So that's just to plant a seed. All right, chalice lighting. This is for the work of the congregation. As we approach our agenda, as we mentioned before, congregational meeting, our yearly meeting is after, which is what this is in reference to. As we approach our agenda, let us remember that we are doing the work of the congregation. When we do the work of this congregation, we touch lives. When we touch lives, we change the world. May this chalice flame we now kindle remind us through our meeting of our ministry and our mission. Our opening hymn is 120. And that is Turn Back. contain the message for today. Turn back, forswear thy foolish ways. Old now is earth, and none may count its days. Yet humankind, whose head is crowned with flame, still will not hear the inner God proclaim. Turn back, forswear thy foolish ways. Forswear thy foolish ways. I couldn't have said it better. And that is, you'll see from our picture, if you can see what's going on. Cutting off nose to spite your face. There are many sayings. Cutting off the limb you're sitting on. This guy with a big hammer is cutting off the tip that he's standing on. And that's kind of what we're looking at. This is one of my favorite philosophers, Mark Twain. He once cautioned, never argue with stupid people. They will drag you down to their level and then beat you with experience. Take heart, pay attention. We're going to look for a way to argue with stupid people. Okay. Affirmation, a prayer for a meeting house. Out of wood and stone, out of dream and sacrifice, the people built a home. Out of the work of their hands and hearts and minds, the people fashioned a symbol and a reality. May this house be truly a place of meeting in warmth and joy and openness, meeting in courage and love and trust. May all those who enter here trust one another so surely that they may share the deep fires that burst into anger as much as the sweet spring waters that swell into laughter, the slow erosion of wounded tears as much as the soaring song. May these walls know silence as 100 hearts search inwards, or as worth numbers of 10, each for its own small spark of hope that may otherwise be snuffed out in the noise. May these rafters hear the voice of the child as surely as that of the orator, and the sound of the lute, and the clack of the typewriter, and the swish of the broom, and know that all are as holy as the shout of a million stars. May the rain fall lightly on this house, and the sun shine warmly, and the winds blow softly, and bless it as a place of joy and peace. That's by Eileen Karplus. All right, our children's story is a little bit of anatomical history. We'll see if it'll play.
The amygdala is a small, almond-shaped structure responsible for fear, anxiety, aggression, sexual attraction, and pleasure. The fear that you feel during a horror movie or when you stand on the edge of a cliff is due to the amygdala. The attraction you may have to someone is also partially due to the amygdala. Think of this part as your built-in spidey sense.
All right, the amygdala. I'm sure if you've had any anatomy or you've listened to any popular YouTube people, you've run across the amygdala. The human brain, and we're getting into a prelude here, the human brain has two ways of processing information. They have the slow, methodical, scientific, think your way through it, critical thinking, use all the possibilities and pick out the right answers and do the best thing, consult with other people, etc., etc. That is something that happens when you have time. When you are afraid or when you're in danger or when there is an emergency, all that is short-circuited and you go to the amygdala, which is a little part of your brain that makes decisions for you without thinking. And we'll talk a little bit about what it's based on as that goes along without thinking. That is why, what I'm leading up to is that is why people are pushing fear. Be afraid of the invasion across the border. Be afraid of the leftists. Be afraid of the communists. Be afraid of the immigrants. Be afraid of the dark-colored people. Be afraid, be afraid, be afraid. Don't think. Be afraid. Do what I tell you. Be afraid. Don't think. Do what I tell you. We are seeing this played out over and over and over again. Okay, joys and concerns. They just keep mounting up. We'll start out with Kerr County, Texas. We'll talk a little bit about that being one of the southern states. over 100 people have been found and confirmed dead. 130 people have still not been found. And if you've seen what the devastation looks like, they may not be found. And this is happening over and over again. Israel, another 30 Palestinians killed yesterday lining up for food and water, shot by the Israelis, lining up for food and water. No reports of any Israelis being shot, no reports of any bombs going off in the Israeli forces. It certainly seems like the Israelis are just shooting for the sake of shooting. It's like leading the mice to the food barrel and then exterminating them. It's a terrible situation and not getting any better. And the only thing that has made a difference is the Israelis made a slight mistake and shelled a Christian church in Jerusalem. And now all of a sudden the United States says, oh, that's a problem, you shouldn't do that. And the Israelis admitted they made a mistake when they shelled a Christian church. The first time they've admitted that.
It's also, in that same vein, light a candle for the gentleman that was killed by settlers, Israeli settlers. It's my understanding he was there, he's an American, Palestinian background.
Yes.
He's an American citizen, I believe. And that has indeed generated letters and correspondence between America and the embassy, obviously, as well as the ambassadors communicating. And there was a protest filed on that, and the Israelis did respond by saying they would most certainly investigate.
Yes, the standard Israeli answer, we will investigate. Just like every
Basically,
time.
it was a mob, a motivated killing. They beat this man to death.
Yes. And I've showed you pictures before, and I will show you again. The settlers have a free hand supported by the army to harass the Palestinian farmers. They uproot their olive trees. They shoot their goats and their sheep and their donkeys. They basically, remember I showed you the picture, they had to put nets over the top of the town because the settlers who lived above the town kept throwing trash into the town all the time. The Israeli settlers, I can show you pictures of them insulting Palestinians walking down the street. They are harassing. It's a pretty despicable picture. There, I can show you a picture of a Palestinian bus picking up passengers on a small, narrow street in Palestine. The Israeli troops come by in giant military trucks and intentionally ram into the bus. And more than just once, the first truck hit it, and then the second truck came by and rammed into the truck. There was plenty of room to pass that truck on the street. They intentionally rammed into it. The harassment goes on and on and on. We have our sunflowers for the Ukraine. The assaults go on and on and on. Peace was not brought about the first day the president came to power. All of his being friendly with Putin has not gained us any peace. There's no answer there. Evidently, Putin has irritated him enough that now we are going to supply some of the military defense weapons, the missiles that they use to shoot down the ballistic missiles Russia is launching. So we'll see what happens there. But there's nothing that is being done is rational or intended for a good outcome for the general population. Anything else? Yes?
My friend and my sister are both in hospital, so we can put out something.
They're still in the hospital?
Well, my friend is still in the hospital. My sister got admitted in the hospital. She's on vacation. And she's very sick, so they admitted her in Tacoma. She's visiting Seattle.
Which hospital?
I think it's Tacoma. If that's right, I Seattle. Yeah.
Okay.
I know the hospital's name, but it's not right off the.
That's all right. It's just to stick in our
You
minds.
met my sister before, but yeah, she went to Seattle and was visiting me and got sick, and she had to cancel a flight.
So, sister and
My friend.
a friend both are suffering with health problems. Health problems are getting more and more serious. As you've probably heard, the funding for Medicaid is being cut dramatically. Wayne Hospital is on one of the lists of hospitals that may close because a great proportion of their funding comes from Medicaid. Wayne Hospital has assured us they will not close, and I take them at their word. They will cut services, and they will cut what's available, and they will cut what they can share with people. So we'll see what happens with that. But the cost-cutting measures that are being put in, basically the meat axe, meat cleaver, chopping off giant pieces, are going to start having effects all the way through. Anything else? Yeah.
Every time I think the Orange Friday will be removed from office or get justice, he's the Teflon man, and he's able to, through his MAGA people in Congress, senators, and his base that you see around here, they support him. So you'll see addressing this as a quote. I thought the Catholic Church would be screaming and yelling to this day. We got a wimpy response from them. And then this thing with Jeffrey Epstein, I don't think anything's going to happen to him. I think, and it's a concern for me, is this what this country's about? I don't know what more. They're going to do something that, well, you know, those are pictures I get with him that he didn't know what was going on and all that. My concern is this country is in the sewer. Sorry, 50% of us are, what do you call them, stupid, naive, evil, hateful. And I don't like that about my opinion of this country. I'm concerned for me too, and my wife.
That's what we want to talk about today, is why decent people, because I'm sure all of you know people who vote Republican in Dark County or any other county who would help. If a black family or a Hispanic family broke down in front of their house, they wouldn't go out and kick them to the curb and say, get out of here. They would go out and help them. But for some reason, they can't translate that into a family or people that they can't actually see. One of the reasons they can't is because their amygdala is running their body. Their primitive brain is running their thoughts and actions. They're reacting on fear and what they've been told, not on what reality is. And that's the question, is how do you reach people with this reality? And it is, I don't have an answer, and none of the research that I've done has given me an answer. They have suggestions like, well, the main thing is you can't talk to them like Mark Twain said, because they have an object in their head that is fixed in there, and they will not come out with any other rationale. So you can't talk them out of it. But their approaches, you can ask questions, you can try to enlighten them as to what their actions are going to cause. And that is one thing. Our only hope actually is as these cuts start to take effect. When Medicaid is cut and people are kicked out of nursing homes because Medicaid's not paying, it's not rich people being kicked out of nursing homes. It's the middle class and the lower class who've put their mom and dad and brother and sister in the nursing home. These are the people who have voted to cut funding. These are the people who are going to have to take responsibility when this starts to happen. When food aid is cut for SNAP, it's not only the people who go to the food bank to get food, it's the places that supply the food. Many of these food banks get food from local farmers who are conservative and voted for Trump. Some of these things are going to come back to bite them, and then we will have to see whether facts and reality will make a difference. I'm not sure that they will. We take the example of Kansas 20 years ago. Kansas was a liberal state back in the 40s and the 50s. One of the first states to have women representatives, and they have been turned completely by Ronald Reagan and that fear thing that they vote against their own interests. They vote. Why do union people vote for someone who's against unions? Why do airline traffic controllers? Remember when Reagan was elected? He was supported by PATCO, the air traffic controllers. What's the first thing he did when he got in? He fired every one of them and dissolved the union. And these union people don't learn from that? What is in the small animal brain that keeps them doing this? So that's what we're going to keep on talking about. So one more candle for those thoughts and prayers that we've not been able to either recognize or say. We as a congregation support you. If there's anything we can do, please let us know. All right. What the nose knows. I was all over the place. That's just a play on words. I like that. Nose and nose is two different spellings and two different things. But that's because there is so much confusion as to what's going on. Part of that confusion is because, and we talked about what causes it, farmers, basically they've cut the subsidies to farmers to pay for land control, to pay for erosion control, to pay for pollution control. All those subsidies that farmers invested in, those are all been cut and slashed. They're no longer going to be there. The prices that are paying for equipment because of the tariffs have raised the price of equipment, the price of steel, the price of raw materials, the price of fertilizer. All their prices are going up. What the money they get for their products are going down because their American products are being boycotted because of the tariffs by China, which buys tons and tons of chicken feet, if you can believe that. They buy things that we wouldn't even want, but they are not buying them anymore. Pork products, you sell huge amounts of pork products in China, that's been stopped. Even wheat, which we sell all over the world, has been stopped. And not just China, other countries are now not buying our wheat. And other countries are picking up the slack. Brazil is increasing their production of wheat, pork, everything. And all these countries are forming new connections with these other countries. So even if the circumstances change and we stop the Paris, we're not going to be getting that market back. Those people have gone someplace else. So we are suffering there in a tremendous sense, at least the farmers are. And yet the farmers still support the presidential administration it's in. They think this is short-term suffering and it won't be long-term. These are not stupid people. And that's what you need to keep thinking. These are not stupid people. Really intelligent, genius people can make errors. The guy who invented the computer, what was his name?
Bill Gates.
What's that?
Bill Gates.
No, the guy that died.
Oh,
Jobs.
Jobs got cancer, and what did he do? Did he go for the standard medical treatment? No, he went for alternative, and Jobs is a genius, we all admit that. He went for the alternative treatment until it was too late, and he died of the cancer, which my understanding was treatable and not curable in 100%, but definitely not curable with alternative treatments of vitamins and diet and yoga and things like that. This is a guy who was really intelligent, his life was on the line, and he gave up his life for these misguided beliefs. Being smart is not being wise. Being smart does not mean you make good choices. All right, minorities vote for a conservative government. Why? Are they getting something personal out of it? Women, there's a large number of women that vote for a conservative government. Women are being taken advantage of. Literally, women are dying because of the birth control, the anti-surgical thing. If you have a tubal pregnancy, because if there's a heartbeat, they can't operate to save your life. And the doctors and everyone knows that a tubal pregnancy is not going to end. I mean, there's no way a fetus can live outside the uterus. So there's no reason to prolong that. And yet, because it has a heartbeat, they are prevented from doing surgery. It's insane. And it's truly, we are being run by a bunch of insane people. Poor people, which you can't imagine, poor people would vote for a conservative government. And I don't understand what the rationale other than they are doing things to other people, and I have this inner feeling that I want other people to suffer. I'm suffering and I shouldn't suffer alone. Is that the rationale? Is that the reason why they vote for someone who hurts other people? I don't know. All right, we go into the amygdala, caveman and the saber-toothed tiger. When you're confronted by a danger like that, it's fight or fright. You don't sit down and lay plans on how to get rid of the saber-toothed tiger. Once the event is over, you worry about fortifying the entrance to your cave. You worry about setting up a warning detection device so you know if the saber-toothed tiger is coming. You set up escape routes to get away from the saber-toothed tiger. But if that saber-toothed tiger appears in your path, you don't have time for any of those things. You do what the immediate brain tells you to do, which is either run or try and fight back. But that is not a thoughtful, planned out response. So there's two kinds of thinking, and that's what we're talking about. The forebrain is the very slow and methodical, and the opposite side, emergency thinking, that's done from the amygdala, which does everything quickly. It does not sit through and plan out a response. It has to make decisions quickly. Fear-based decisions based in emergencies, and ultimately not rational, but reactionary. Does this give you a clue why we are inundated by an invasion of rapists at the border when everyone needs a gun, though actually crime statistics show crime is dropping? There are terrible things to be afraid of. The Democrats are evil. They're not just an opposition party. They're evil and want to destroy you. Everything is intended to scare the pants off of you and make you stop thinking, stop talking, stop working with people. And then you have the slow methodical thinking. That's the critical thinking. Take your time, consider all the possibilities, consult with others, check with what others have done before you in the same situation. It seems like the logical thing to do, but they discourage talking with the other people. They discourage talking with the opposition. They tell you not to talk with the opposition. They tell you not to talk with Democrats. Democrats are evil. Democrats can't be rationed or reasoned with. All you can do is watch Fox News and make fun of them and hurt them as much as you possibly can. So, this is Kerr County, and the reason the Texas flag is there is a good reason. Do you know, did any of you see the history of what happened in Kerr County? Are you familiar with that? If you watch the news, it's probably, well, if you watch NPR or PBS, you're probably familiar with it. If you watched Fox, you have no idea what we'll be talking about. Kerr County, Texas is the bottom of a giant bowl. All the rain for miles is collected and funneled down to the Guadalupe River. There are steep hills. They're all rocky, so there's no trees or underbrush to absorb the water. When it rains, it runs right down to the bottom of the bowl. It rushes from the outskirts to the center, and the creeks flood immediately. They went from being a foot over when the rain started to 2 hours later, it was 30 feet higher. In 2 hours, there was 30 feet of water in the center of the Guadalupe River. Where was the girls' camp? Where were all of the parks for people who wanted to come vacation on July 4th? Where were they parking their vans, their tents, their campers? All along the banks of the river. The National Weather Service has pointed out that this is a flood plain, not just a normal flood plain, an emergency flood plain, which is in grave danger of catastrophic flooding, which has happened before. There have been, in 1987, there was another giant flood that came through Kerr County and the Guadalupe River and washed away a bunch of people and a bunch of houses. So it's not like this is something that's never happened before. So, because of this, the Biden administration has authorized $10 million to Kerr County for emergency protection, emergency evacuation, emergency measures that were needed to be done. They did not specify specifically what had to be done. They just said, here's $10 million, use it to help yourself in these emergencies. Kerr County, this is the thinking that we're up against. Kerr County said, we do not want money from the government. We do not accept money from the government. Then somebody told Kerr County, if you don't take this money, they will take the $10 million and give it to Oregon or New York or Vermont. And they said, well, we can't have that happen, so we're going to take the $10 million. So what will we spend it on? They spent it on a radio system for the sheriff's department, and everybody in the sheriff's department got a 10% raise, and they also got a new combat vehicle that would help in the case of armed insurrection against the government. Did they spend any of it on warning devices? No. 10 years ago, after the last flood, they proposed sirens all along the Guadalupe River like you have for tornado sirens. The counties below Guadalupe, below Kerr County, there's 2 counties below Kerr County in the same Guadalupe River. Did they have any deaths? No. Why? Because they have a siren warning system. When there is a flood predicted by the National Weather Service, which it was predicted at 1 o'clock in the morning, before the flood actually happened at 3 o'clock, they sounded the sirens and people left the floodplains. What happened in Kerr County? Because they don't have sirens, they sent out warnings to people's personal phones. Just the same thing we talk about here. If you leave your phone on at night, you'll get a lost child or a missing child alert, or you'll get a tornado alert. That beep beep will wake you up out of a dead sleep and scare the pants off you, but that's what it's for. What was the problem with the girls' camp? The girls were not allowed to have cell phones. The counselors were not allowed to have cell phones. The only person who had a cell phone was the director of the camp. And he got the alarm at 1 o'clock. He waited an hour and a half till 2:30 to say we should evacuate. By then it was too late, and he died trying to save the girls. But his resistance, his reluctance to sound the alarm basically cost the lives of all those kids, if they even could have been saved then, because that camp is built in an emergency floodplain, which they got an exemption. Technically, you're not allowed to build in those, and they added on. The girls' cabins for those young girls were built right next to the river, in the lowest part of the river, and they got an exemption because they were not supposed to be able to build anything there. The Kerr County government said, oh yeah, go ahead, and you can build there. So they said you can build there, you don't need to have a warning system involved. Who is going to protect them from the floods that they knew would eventually happen? Who is going to protect them? The Weather Service put out their warnings, and nobody responded to them. So this has happened before, and unless something changes, it will happen again. One reason it will happen again is because there is a global weather change going on. The warmer the atmosphere, the more water the atmosphere holds, and the more it's dumped out. I told you I had an example of that on the way to Iowa last week for a wedding. We were on the way up on I-80. It rained, torrentially rained, duck drowned her. For 30 minutes on I-80, we were going 30 miles an hour with our four-ways on, with semi-trucks before and behind us, beside us. Luckily, everybody was following the rules, the common sense rules of driving slow. So there was no accident. And on the way back, on Sunday, on the way back from Iowa, again, torrential rainstorms again in Iowa. We have driven around the country, and you've been through here. How many times have you been in a torrential rainstorm where you couldn't see? Maybe 1 or 2 times in your life, but 2 times in one weekend? That's a harbinger of things to come. It is already starting to happen everywhere. There's more water, it's dumped, and also the Weather Service tells us that the systems are slowing down. They're staying in place longer instead of a weather system going by at 10 or 15 miles an hour. It piles up all these rain clouds and then it holds them in one place. They've had floods in New Hampshire. They've had floods in Pennsylvania. They've had floods in Carolina. There's floods all over the country now. It is obvious as the nose on your face that something is going on. It's not just the normal weather. So, okay, global warming, high temps interfere with brain function, and we can go through a whole list of, we talk about, if you look at all the statistics, where are the teen pregnancies the highest, where is education availability the lowest, anything you want, where are gun deaths the highest, where are divorce rates the highest versus the lowest, where are infant deaths the highest versus the lowest, where is healthcare more available than not available, where is the environment being protected versus not being protected. It's a line that goes right straight from the north to the south. The farther south you get, the worse the conditions get. The red states of the South have the worst record for every one of these things I've talked about, every one of these states. And because it's getting warmer, the climate is getting warmer. It used to be just the South was in this situation. But when I was a kid growing up, Indiana and Ohio were known as, at least purple, and Ohio was known as a blue state. It's getting warmer and warmer, and people's ability to think has gotten less and less, so they've turned into red states. Indiana in particular has gone some amazing things if you're paying attention to what's going on in Indiana. The amount of money they've cut from public assistance, the amount of money they've cut for health care, the amount of science they've canceled, and yet they had the money to put in a helipad at the governor's house. The governor of Indiana does not want to live at the state house, at the governor's mansion. He wants to live in his own house. So the state, at their expense, installed a helipad at his house for him to use, and of course continue to use after he's no longer the governor. That's the kind of thing we see over and over and over again. Some people will say there are other red states. Utah is about as red as you can get. Montana's pretty red. And yet if you look at Utah and Montana, they're not quite as red as the southern states. Because they are farther north and because their brains function a little bit better, they still have maintained some support for public education. They still have maintained some support for public health, not a lot, and it is growing less and less as time goes along. But it is, you can see the difference between the deep south, the deep red states, and the more of the rosy red states. The correlation is pretty amazing. And if you look at the world, think about the countries of the equator versus the northern tier of countries. Which are the countries that are the happiest? Which are the countries that provide healthcare, education, everything for free, and seem to be in a stable state? Which are the countries that are suffering with disease outbreaks, with loss of education? Where are the countries that all of the people are fleeing from, trying to get to the northern countries? They're all countries from the south, from the equator. That follows around the world. So I don't know whether this is some harebrained thing that I just stumbled on, but I would be curious if anybody else can find a rationale for this. The basic thought is the hotter it gets, the harder it is to think, and the harder it is to think, the worse your civilization is. And if you're telling me that civilization started in Italy and Greece, which is down by the equator, that was long before global warming. Egypt, Greece, Italy, long before there was any global warming is when civilization started. And as it spread north through Italy and into Germany and into Sweden and Norway, that is, to me, that is prima facie. You can see the results of what's going on. Okay, that's all I got. Questions, comments, arguments?
I have to make a comment. I think you might have a PhD thesis that works here, because you're taking politics, physiology, climatology, demographics, and a partridge in a pear tree.
Yes.
To basically say that warm temperatures and all those negative factors make people stupid. At least that's what I got out of this one.
I don't want to insult anybody and say it makes them stupid.
Maybe it's the mosquitoes.
What?
The mosquitoes.
What I'm saying is it slows your thinking patterns down, so you're not coming up with the logical conclusions that people who are in the prime of their thought process in a nice cool temperature, which I guess look at that. Am I thinking right? Because I'm up here sweating bullets.
Yeah.
So is that, yes.
Well, my thing is, and it covers what what you said, it's that there's so many people, they just don't like change, so they continue to listen to what their grandparents listened to, what they push, the agenda that they push, and they became more extreme with it as they push it, and then they don't want to talk to anybody because they don't want you to change their mind and make them think that, well, it's really not as bad as what everybody's told me they are, because they don't want to take the time to read, they don't want to take the time to learn, and they definitely don't want to know anything that may make them think about changing themselves.
And see, this is done intentionally. I don't want to get into the group mystery, whatever they call that thing, where there's fantasies of people controlling us from other places. But one of the reasons that the conservative people want to destroy education, and there is a concentrated effort to destroy public education and make it private education, where people can have a computer and teach their kids whatever they want. There's no control over that at all. Yes, and one of the reasons for that is, one of the things that's taught in public education is critical thinking. They teach you to look at both sides of a problem, or three sides of a problem, or four sides of a problem, and come up with the best answer. They don't want anybody to be able to think. They can't control you if you are thinking. So, and we can go into multiple reasons why people don't think. One is groupthink. When all your friends and your church and everybody you associate with believes one way, you actually are afraid to say something different because you'll be ousted, you'll be castigated, you'll be intimidated to stay with the group. That is a big part of what's going on. Another thing is there's a thing called the concentrated opinion, or the something that you got from your parents that is a foundational thing you believe in. You don't want to change that. That's one of the things that's important to your life, and you're not going to change it. So no matter what anybody says about rational or making sense, or does this seem, common sense to you, you're going to cling on to that belief that you inherited from somebody else. There are other reasons. Scientists have gone through this research, and it gets pretty complicated with a bunch of terms that I didn't understand, and we can go through that farther. But the main thing is, there's a lot of resistance to thinking. One of it is intentional by the people who are trying to get you not to think, and the other is truly the environment is moving us against thinking. That's truly, I think, what is beginning to happen. And the problem is, I haven't come across the solution. I haven't come across a way to help these people start thinking. One of the ways is humor. And you try to make fun of what they're saying, and if you can get people to watch the humor, which is the problem, you can't. If they see some of the late night comedians on TV that put together these little shots that you'll never see on the evening news, that's the professional news, the commercial news, it's pretty incredible. And it's almost beyond belief that people can do this. And yet, what is the response? We are eliminating the funding for NPR and PBS. So there will be stations in Alaska and Montana and places out west where there will be no radio station at all, because public stations are the only ones that are there, because commercial stations can't make money. There is going to be a real problem. They're eliminating the Colbert show because, and nobody will say, they say, oh, it has nothing, it's business reasons, it has nothing to do with what he's saying about. But they're already saying it's the Daily Show next on the chopping block. When the government, like in Nazi Germany, starts eliminating anybody who protests or says anything against the prevailing government, we're in deep duty. Okay, yes?
I think I said this before. Of course, we know that our government wants to eliminate alternative energy sources like our wind turbines and solar. Everything solar. And he is giving the go-ahead for coal and any petroleum for energy. And what's going to happen is we're going to get more carbon dioxide up in the air. Of course, it's going to cause a temperature, lakes and our oceans to rise. And people are still saying, well, what's a degree or two in the ocean? People don't realize that there's something called heat capacity. Water has this capacity to take a lot of heat energy. If you put a pound of water and you put a pound of steel, put them both in the burner, if you touch them, still you're going to go, wow, the temperature went up quickly. That's because it has a low heat capacity. A couple degrees in the ocean is a lot of energy, and that energy has to dispel itself some way. And it's already showing with all of the stuff. I can just read the newspaper and see, hurricanes and derechos and straight wind. And with the elimination of like NPR and education going private, people are going to continue to say, well, what's a couple of degrees in the ocean? And they're going to scratch their head as to why there was a hurricane in the neighborhood. I don't know. Again, I think some of you here, a few of you have this ability to say, well, I think I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, or maybe things will change. And you're right.
Things will change because the glaciers are melting, Antarctica is melting, and Greenland is melting. The sea level is rising like a centimeter or 3 centimeters a year. As they begin to melt, the rise will increase, and people that live in coastal cities like Florida, Miami, places like that will be flooded out. They're already flooded out. You can see when high tide, the sewers are backing up. There's like plumes of water coming out in the middle of the street, not during a storm or an emergency, just when the high tide comes up. because the sewer drains water to the ocean, but now the ocean's high enough, it's pushing water back into the streets. And we haven't even gone into the meat acts. They just eliminated the environmental controls of the Great Lakes, the scientific study of the Great Lakes that prevented the algae bloom from poisoning people at Toledo. They eliminated that department. They've eliminated the National Science Service. They've eliminated that department that does the investigation into cancer research. That department has been cut so bad there's nothing left there. They can't even afford to get supplies for filters and parts for their machines. This is going on across the government. These people have some kind of troglodyte idea that none of these things are necessary, that they don't do anything. The results will be there. We will see the results as cancer rates go up, as infection. They've cut the meat inspectors. When people start to get poisoned by bad meat with infections in meat, but by that time it's technically too late. But maybe that's the only way we'll escape, or maybe we'll be beyond doing anything about it. If we don't have any independent media, if we don't have elections, we'll be beyond that, and we'll just have to spiral down. Okay, we're getting way late here. Offering.
But we're not hearing where the money that from these cuts are going. We're just getting deeper and deeper in debt. Because, yeah.
Well, we all know the money for the debts, for the cuts, are going to the wealthy.
Right.
The people, when they tell you that Social Security is going to go bankrupt in 5 years, and I've talked about this before, there's a limit on contributions to Social Security. But when Social Security was created in 1933, the limit was $120,000 a year. If you made that much, which made you a millionaire in those days, you didn't contribute any more of your information or any more of your salary to Social Security. Now the limit is like $230,000. And once you get to $230,000, you contribute no more money into Social Security. The rest of us pay 15%. If all they had to do is raise it to $400,000 or $500,000, Social Security would be funded for the next 100 years. Because if all those people put in 15% of everything over $250,000, we would have tons of money. But you never hear anybody say that's a solution for Social Security. The solution they tell you is we're going to cut benefits. We're going to cut the amount of money you get. And when you're living on Social Security, you don't have much to live on, I can tell you that. It is tough for these people trying to live on Social Security. So, okay, we are going to hear, where are we here? People will say we are in love. People will say, yeah, go ahead. is our holy church? Pay attention to the lyrics. Where is our paradise? In aspiration's sight, wherein we hope to see arise 10,000 years of right. Even in 1800s, early 1900s, the look of the future, faith in the future was still there, and I do not want to destroy anybody's faith in the future. I want to wake you up so we make sure our future appears like it should and is not buried like it appears to be in that practice now. Okay, extinguishing the chalice here and beyond these walls. As we extinguish this chalice flame, may the warmth of its light remain within us, guiding our steps and our hearts. Let us carry forward the strength of this community, the courage to speak truth, the hope that transformation is possible. In each breath we take, may we remember that the work of love, justice, and healing is ours to continue, both here and beyond these walls. Go in peace with the light of this gathering to illuminate your way. Congressional meeting afterwards, there's donuts, and is a flood and a horse, and a brave person leading that horse to safety, that is in Texas, but there have been floods all over the place. Okay, that closes our service. Postlude, yep, we're going to hear, where is my page? Biding My Time. tribulations that face us in our local area and in our country and in the world. Do not give up. Keep the faith. Right, congressional meeting, and as a kind of informational thing, we are discussing closing the church. That does not mean we are closing the church immediately. We're discussing these eventualities because as our attendance dwindles, we need to be prepared. We don't want to have it just spring on us.
And everyone is welcome to attend.
Everyone is welcome to attend. Everyone is welcome to put their opinion in.
And we have more refreshments today. We've had opinions.
Yes.
We always have.
We have plenty of opinions. You're not probably allowed to vote unless you're a member, but you can become a member by saying I'm a member, so it's not hard. But anyone is invited to attend. And we want your input.
Did you get your battery put back in?
Yes, and it works.
Yay!
So, yeah. I had 2 screws left over, so I'm not sure where that came from.
There were 2 screws that held on to the battery, tiny ones.
Yes, but I
Held it down.
there was a hole there, but the screws didn't go in, so I made, basically as tight as it fit in there.
If it works, it works.
Yeah.
If you drop it, it might come a little loose.
Yeah, so I don't move.
It'll still be attached.
And it was pretty, the fitting, the lid is on there pretty tight, so I don't think it's gonna move around a lot, so I think I'm in good shape.
I
So,
was
yeah.
sick 2 weeks ago, and I still was like symptomatic last week, so we didn't come. He did not come.
Well, you can watch online.
He doesn't. He likes to be present.
Well, being present is better, but in lieu of being present, you can at least keep track of what's going on if you're watching online. And so it's on Facebook, and I always put it on
He's not allowed
YouTube.
to.
Well, I put it on YouTube too, the First Universalist.
What's the YouTube?
County Universalist up in Madison.
Yeah. We're gonna go, because you want to get distractions.
We can get some help on the Zoom.
These are free. What kind of donuts?
We'll go look.
Complete assortment, and if you don't eat them, they go in the freezer and you have to eat them next week. And after 2 weeks, you go to the dog, so I'd rather have people eat them than give them to them. I don't mind giving them to the dog, I'd rather have people eat them, so.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Not today.